A baby is dying, turning blue, can't breathe. The nurses rush the infant to the supervising doctor, but there's a problem. That doctor is a 19-year-old high school dropout who learned everything he knows from a TV show. And in another part of the country, a man is falling through freezing darkness with a fortune strapped to his chest. The FBI will search for his body for 50 years. They'll never find it. Welcome to hell. Picture this. You're a patient in a Georgia hospital in 1968. The doctor treating you, he's not a doctor. He's a 19-year-old high school dropout who learned medicine by watching a TV show. And here's the crazy part. He gets away with it for almost a year. But before he was playing doctor, he was doing something even more insane. At 16 years old, Frank Abagnale Jr. Frank was sitting in a cockpit of a Pan Am flight, wearing a pilot's uniform, flying first class to Paris. But Frank, he had never flown a plane in his life. You're probably wondering how a teenager pulls this off, right? Well, it all started when his parents got divorced, and Frank made a decision that would change everything. He wasn't just going to run away from home. He was going to reinvent himself completely. And what he did next was so brilliant, even the FBI couldn't believe it when they finally caught him. So Frank walks into a uniform store with a simple plan. He calls Pan Am Airlines, but he doesn't ask for a job. He pretends to be a pilot who lost his uniform, and they just give him one. No questions asked? Think about that for a second. A 16-year-old convinces one of the world's biggest airlines to hand him a pilot's uniform over the phone. But the uniform is just the beginning. Frank needs an ID, an FAA license, credentials. So he goes to a print shop and forges everything at 16 years old. Now here's where it gets insane. Frank discovers something called deadheading. It's when pilots hitch rides in the cockpit of other flights to get to their assignments. So Frank just starts showing up at airports in his fake uniform, flashing his fake credentials, and getting free flights anywhere he wants. Paris, Rome, London, Miami. For 2 years, this kid is living like a millionaire, staying in 5-star hotels, eating at expensive restaurants, and it's all completely free. But you know what? Flying around the world wasn't enough for Frank. He got bored. So he decided to try something even more dangerous. He's going to become a doctor. Now remember that hospital I mentioned at the beginning, where a fake doctor is supervising real doctors? This is where that nightmare becomes reality. Frank forges a Harvard Medical School diploma. He applies to be a supervising pediatrician in Georgia, and they hire him. For 11 months, Frank Abagnale, a teenager with zero medical training, is in charge of an entire shift at a hospital. Real doctors are coming to him for approval on procedures. Parents are trusting him with their sick children. And here's the most terrifying part. He almost gets someone killed. One night, a baby starts turning blue. The nurses rush the infant to Frank, expecting him to save this child's life. And Frank, he has absolutely no idea what to do. That's the moment he realizes he's in too deep. So he quits the next day, just walks out. But the FBI, they're getting closer. An agent named Joe Shea has been tracking Frank for months, piecing together this impossible pattern of fraud across the country. And Frank knows they're coming. So what does he do? He runs to Europe, France, Sweden, anywhere he can cash fake checks and stay one step ahead. But even Frank Abagnale can't run forever. And when they finally catch him, the truth about how much he's stolen will shock you. 1. Frank is arrested in France. When the FBI adds up all the fake checks, all the fraudulent transactions, you know what the total is? $2.5 million. In 1960s money, that's over 20 million today. He's 21 years old. France sentences him to prison, then Sweden, then the United States. And Frank is looking at decades behind bars. His life is over. But then something incredible happens. The FBI comes to him with an offer. They say, "Frank, you're the best con artist we've ever seen. Help us catch people like you, and we'll let you out early." Frank agrees. After less than 5 years in prison, he's released, and he becomes one of the FBI's most valuable fraud consultants. Today, Frank Abagnale runs a multi-million-dollar security consulting business. He advises banks, corporations, the FBI. The same institutions he once scammed are now paying him millions to protect them. That 16-year-old kid who walked into a hospital and fooled everyone. He turned his crimes into a career, and his story is about to make what happens next seem even more impossible. November 24th, 1971. A man in a suit buys a plane ticket. 2 hours later, he jumps out of that plane with $200,000 strapped to his body, disappearing into a freezing rainstorm. The FBI searches for years, and they never find him. Not his body, not the money, nothing. Who was he? That's the question that's haunted investigators for over 50 years. The man calls himself Dan Cooper, middle-aged, wearing a dark suit and sunglasses. He boards Northwest Orient Flight 305 in Portland, heading to Seattle. Sits in the back, orders a bourbon and soda. Everything seems normal until he hands the flight attendant a note. She thinks he's hitting on her. She doesn't even read it, just tucks it in her pocket and starts to walk away. But then Cooper leans in close and whispers, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." And everything changes. The flight attendant reads the note. Each of her hands start shaking. It says he has a bomb in his briefcase. He wants $200,000 in $20 bills, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck waiting in Seattle. She looks at Cooper, trying to see if he's serious. He opens his briefcase just a crack. Inside, red sticks that look like dynamite, wires, a battery. She notifies the captain immediately. The captain contacts Seattle. And suddenly, the FBI, local police, everyone is scrambling to meet this guy's demands. But here's what's genius about Cooper. He's thought of everything. He demands 4 parachutes because he knows if he only asks for 1, the FBI might sabotage it. But if he asks for 4, they'll think he might take hostages with him, so they won't dare tamper with any of them. The plane circles Seattle for 2 hours while authorities gather the money in parachutes, which the passengers have no idea what's happening. They think it's just a mechanical delay. When they land in Seattle, Cooper lets all 36 passengers off. They walk away thinking they just had a delayed flight. They don't know they were on a hijacked plane. But Cooper keeps the crew, and he gives them very specific instructions for the flight to Mexico City. Remember how I said Cooper thought of everything? Listen to these instructions. Fly below 10,000 feet. Keep the landing gear down. Set the flaps at 15 degrees. Leave the rear stairs unlocked. The crew is confused. Why would someone hijacking a plane care about the flaps and altitude? But they do exactly what he says. They take off from Seattle, heading south. They're somewhere over southwestern Washington. Dense forest below. Freezing rain. Wind. It's pitch black outside. And then, at 8:13 p.m., the crew feels a change in air pressure. Something's wrong with the plane. They try to contact Cooper in the back, No response. When they land and check the rear cabin, Cooper is gone. The back stairs are down, 2 parachutes are missing, and somewhere in that freezing wilderness below, a man just jumped out of a commercial airliner with $200,000 tied to his body. The question everyone's asking, could he have possibly survived? The temperature was below freezing. He jumped at night in a rainstorm, wearing just a business suit, no helmet, no goggles. The wind speeds at that altitude would have been brutal. Most experts say it was a suicide mission. No way he survived. But here's the thing. They never found a body. The FBI launches the biggest manhunt in American history. They search the forests of Washington for weeks. Helicopters, search dogs, hundreds of agents combing through the wilderness. Nothing, not a parachute, not a body, not a single $20 bill. It's like D.B. Cooper just vanished into thin air, and the case goes cold. For 9 years, nothing. Then in 1980, a young boy is playing on the banks of the Columbia River, and he finds something buried in the sand. A rotting package full of $20 bills. $5,800. And when the FBI checks the serial numbers, they match Cooper's ransom money. This discovery creates more questions than answers. If the money washed up in the river, does that mean Cooper crashed into the water and died? Or did he survive, but lose some of the money crossing the river? The FBI interviews over 800 suspects. Some people even confess, claiming they're D.B. Cooper, but none of them check out, and every lead goes nowhere. 1. After 45 years of investigation, the FBI officially closes the case. They say they need to focus resources on other crimes. D.B. Cooper becomes the only unsolved case of air piracy in American history. Here's what keeps me up at night. Cooper knew exactly what he was doing. He chose a Boeing 727 specifically because it had rear stairs that could open mid-flight. He demanded money in 20s because they'd be harder to trace. He gave those specific flight instructions because he knew that altitude and speed would make it possible to jump. This wasn't some random guy with a crazy idea. This was someone who planned every detail. So the question isn't just, did D.B. Cooper survive? The real question is he still out there, watching all of us talk about him, knowing he pulled off the perfect crime? Frank Abagnale got caught. D.B. Cooper became a ghost. Drop a comment right now. Do you think Cooper's still alive? And subscribe, because next week's case is even darker.